All right then. How about you, Aviju?
Well, let's say I just dropped here in the last minute, and if you want to record, it's fine for me. Also, the talk seems really cool about climate change,
Okay.
and it would be interesting to see how because I see all only 4 trigrams here. What you put here on the climate change and human psychology looks quite interesting, to be honest. You have the mother, the father, and then the water and the fire. This is a really cool combination, to be honest. I'll be quite interesting to hear what is it about.
Yeah. Okay. Well, from my perspective, when we did the last call, not long after that, I watched the David Attenborough video and the other video called Kiss the Ground, and there were things in it that kind of reminded me of trigrams, and I thought it might be a good way to just to start the meeting and have a conversation about that, and just to see if we can transpose the understanding of these 4 trigrams in alignment with what's occurring with climate change, and then also maybe within that, if we can identify some core psychological factors within humanity that's contributing to the changes we're experiencing in on this planet. My reasoning for just choosing these 4, if basically the Qian heaven is the first trigram or first hexagram in the I Ching book, and Kun Earth's the second, and then in the King Wen's Bagua, the post heaven Bagua, we also have the trigram of water is number 1 and the trigram of fire is number 2. So there's a similarity with the 1 and the 2 between these 4 trigrams. And when you break down all of the 64 hexagrams in the I Ching book, they're going to, well, I'll draw that up. I'll just show you what I mean by that. So if we just take, let's say, we look at the 3rd hexagram in the I Ching. So there's a thing called mutual hexagrams, which take the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th line, and the 3rd, 4th, and 5th line, and they create 2 different trigrams, which then we can double up, to create what's called a mutual hexagram. So my understanding of this is it's the core meaning of the hexagram. In fact, this is not a great example, but from this mutual, so if we just put M there for mutual, then you create a core hexagram, which in this case is obviously going to be Kun Earth. So how about we create another one? Then we do, let's say we could do wind over. Well, let's get a water trigram up. So we can do. So then from this one we get 1, 2, 3, 1, 3, which gives us lake and fire. And then from this we get fire underneath and water on top. So basically what's going to happen is anytime you can think of a trigram, when we break it down to the mutual and then to the core, we're going to end up either with Qian heaven as the core, or Kun Earth or this one, far underwater, or its opposite, which is water under fire. So yeah, any of the 64 hexagrams, if you do this process to get to the core gua, it's going to end up as one of these four, which to me suggests that these four are the primary balance, you could say, or the primary balance information from the 8 trigrams. And then what we talked about last time about the 6 children, and the fire and the water being the most balanced of all the 6 children. Again, we've got another interesting correspondence going on here. Okay. And then from that, from these 4, we could look at them as their elemental components. So we could put metal there for Qian, heaven and earth, fire and water, or we could still look at that as heaven and earth, and then again fire and water. And then the primary hexagrams that each of these create, so initiation, responding, brightness and darkness. And then the possibilities when we combine the two, so when we put earth over heaven or heaven over earth, etc., we get these 4 hexagrams. This one's the first hexagram in the book, this one's the second, this one's the 30th, and water's the 29th. So the numbers 1 to 30 is called the upper canon, which is said to be the way of heaven, or the Tao of heaven. And then from 31 to 64, the hexagrams are called the way of humanity. So the way that humanity follows heaven. So again, these 4 trigrams, when in their primary state, they start and end the upper canon. And then also these 2 here, this is the 63rd hexagram and the 64th. So these also conclude the I Ching book. So again, it's kind of showing that these 4 are of vital importance, you could say, in understanding. And please join in, because I am definitely not a climate change expert. Like I said, something I've watched in it, I found it interesting, the fact that there's possibly it's evaporation and condensation. Let's just move this down. On the daily or any cycle, basically, whether it's we could say evaporation could also be expansion. So in this diagram, we've got some components of, well, all components of Chinese medicine, really. But if we just look at the inner circle, this is the pre-heaven gua of Fuxi, and go in the common pattern now. We know 1, 2, 3, 4, jumping across 5, 6, 7, 8, which is descriptive of the you could say the descent or the decline, or the expansion of yang energy from the highest point would be in the north in you guys in the northern hemisphere, or in the south, sorry, in the northern hemisphere, and then again as that yang declines. Yeah, as the yang energy comes down here and declines, and it jumps up again to its decline down the right side of the circle. And we can say that in regard to a daily movement, we can see this is the east, and following the sun as it rises, and then this is the west, so following the sun as it descends. And then within the inner circle we have the Fuxi Bagua, and on the outer one we've got King Wen's post-heaven arrangement. So we notice when we put the two Baguas together that we have the trigram Qian, the trigram of Kun. In relation there we've got Qian, water, and Li, fire. So there's a direct, again, link up on this vertical axis. And if we think of I guess the major aspects of climate change is the transformation of the energetic of carbon in different percentages, you could say, that are now increasing in the atmosphere and being drawn, sucked out of the earth, you could say. So there's insufficient diversity on the earth plane to actually be able to draw in and store carbon. So it's being released up into the atmosphere. And what I'm wondering is if we can evaluate some of the qualities of these 4 trigrams to see if we can correlate with human attitudes, behaviours, psychology, into what might be happening on a physical level in alignment with climatic change. What do you guys know about climate change? Hi, Galaxy Note 8.
Say that again.
What was that, mate?
What did you say after what do you guys know about climate change?
I said hello to Galaxy Note 8.
All right, okay. Hello, am I on?
Yeah, you're on.
Hello.
Sorry for late. I thought it was 8:30 we started.
Yeah, Mark thought that as well. So I don't know where I put that down. So we're just exploring again from just the beginning, and we're looking at the 4 trigrams. Let me just get an annotator.
Can I make a statement then?
Yeah.
That climate change is symbolic of man's inner state.
Yeah.
It's a kind of physical manifestation of what goes on inside humans.
Right. Do you want to flesh that out a bit?
Well, God. So, like understanding the concept of self-regulation, you know, a planet that is capable of looking after itself. It has its own intelligence. It regulates and monitors its temperature, its respiration, its heartbeat, all of this sort of stuff. We see this through the climate. The climate is the regulatory force of the planet. It's what regulates all of these systems, is our climate. And so the kind of disharmony that we often talk about within the humans as we kind of strive to become conscious of ourselves is effectively projected out. You know, we do it relationally with each other in terms of love or discord or whatever, but we also do it to our planet without regard for the consequences. It's almost sort of like a global autism, you know, the way that we constantly attack our very own spaceship. And what we see is the effects of that. We see the effects of millennia of human endeavour, and we're now suffering the consequences of that. Particularly since the Industrial Revolution, you know, it's linked to intelligence. In fact, our own intelligence.
Yeah.
We think we're more intelligent than it, basically. It's where the concept of secularism comes in, you know, the ability not to have faith or to see, acknowledge some concept that we can acknowledge as bigger and better and more intelligent, more sorted than us, more conscious. And we've refuted that. We no longer acknowledge that. We're just all very opinionated, and we think we know best, and we don't really care what we do. It's all growth, growth, growth. That's what cancer does.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Yeah.
When we talk about human health, like well-being, we're looking for balance and harmony. We're looking for self-regulation, to just be okay, to be, let our own systems look after ourselves. And it's the same thing, really, to me.
Okay. So what do you guys know about the trigram heaven?
Not very much, hence why I was interested in the call.
Yeah, okay.
And what I've heard of the trigrams is, can I say, you can predict, but every disease has come from the trigrams and everything is related to them.
Yeah.
I also heard that they're extremely complicated and takes years to grasp them, and also years, if not decades, to master them. Whether you actually master them is another question, but that's what I've kind of heard with them. But they do kind of interest me. Yeah. I suppose it's the continuous learning of an acupuncturist that you always striving to, in my eyes anyway, to be better. Well, you could argue that as a downfall.
Yep.
That's open to, open to question, isn't it?
Striving is such a good word. I love that word. Yeah. It's what makes us conscious when we have a purpose, a destination and a goal.
Yeah. I'm sure I can speak for, I think there's only 4 of us on, but for all 4 of us is that, when you get a patient coming in that, has been, your treatment has been successful, you're kind of like, yes, I got it right, that's fantastic. And when the patient comes in, well, that hasn't really changed much, you're a bit like, what went wrong? What happened? Tell me more. I know I'm like that, and I'm sure I'm not the only one. So if trigrams can break things down, if that's the right word, to make things, I wouldn't say easier, but more, I suppose, successful. So therefore, we're treating more people. As I suppose in some ways it's success in a slightly different way to a business way, where I want my patients to get better, which I have had this conversation with quite a few business people who've come to see me. And they're like, well, I get better. And I'm like, yeah, that's good. And they're like, yeah, but that's bad for business because I get better and don't come back. And in a business model, that's not what you want.
You're talking about the National Health Service there, aren't you?
I wasn't going to get into that. But, well, I've also heard from people who've seen, how can I put this? Other practitioners, I'll phrase it like that, from other modalities, that one apparently is going to come back to me because she keeps seeing her physio, I'll mention it, but there's other people out there as well, and he's already mentioned about 3 faults in the body, but he's not working on them. And I thought, yeah, isn't that just a way of putting it out there that there's more work to do on your body, so therefore you should carry on seeing me? And they're putting it out in a, if you want, in a sub way, so the subconscious then grabs hold of it and can actually make those faults worse. Does that make any sense?
Well, your state, you're sort of bringing out a fundamental quality, or actually no, a division between, if I can call allopathic medicine like a biomedical model approach, and as opposed to an energetic and holistic healing approach, is that allopathy doesn't have a model of cure. They don't have a pathway that they can acknowledge, that they can recognize is somebody's path towards cure. They see a removal of a symptom or a lessening of a symptom as a cure. And really, it doesn't take into account the integration of the whole person, all the parts together, the vitality. And I think that what you're saying is, with the trigrams, is that is your structure. That is what allows you to see somebody gets better or doesn't get better. It's something you can go back to guide you through a process of what you understand to be cure, what you understand to being better means. And I would say the same in my pathway too, that I have a model of cure, if that makes sense, that I can always adhere to, that tells me when somebody's getting better and when they're not, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think so. Again, we can look at, you know, the signs and symptoms and everything else, but that just, the signs and symptoms just guide us to where, if you want, where we're going.
They're an expression of disharmony.
Yes.
They're there to help us.
Exactly. And with the trigrams, I'm kind of thinking we can put them together, and one would presume the trigrams would alter slightly as we move through the signs and symptoms. And if we can then pick something up which would make a bigger difference, so we can, if you want, jump trigrams, if that's the right sort of terminology, you know, if we can jump forward 2 or 3 trigrams and go, all right, okay, well, this is going to lead us down this path, well, that would be more beneficial for the patient, but also for us to learn.
Yeah, just a few things on that. It depends what you're studying within trigrams to the complexity and how long it takes to learn it. If you just go off the characteristics of the trigrams, the qualities, you could say, of a balanced trigram, or a hyperactive trigram, or a deficient aspects of that trigram, you know, then you've only got 8 different characteristics that then harmonize with the other 7 trigrams. So there's not a huge amount of learning in that regard. If you start to bring in the I Ching book, that's a much an older wisdom for a start. So the language that it was written in, you know, is I don't know exactly the origin, but probably 2.5, 3, 4, 5,000 years old. So understanding what the initial concepts were within the I Ching hexagrams, I think, is quite challenging. And then if you go line by line, what each line means, again, with it going through the I Ching book, then it's a lifetime study for sure. what I'm particularly interested in is just looking at what trigrams represent, and where can we see that, you know, and that's why I'm just as a conversation starter today talking about climate change, is where can we see the qualities, and if we go with what Mart said, that he feels climate change is a reflection of the inner state of humanity, and can we see that in these four core trigrams of heaven, earth, fire and water. So if we just come back to the heaven trigram again, so we've got three, so basically the straight line's a yang line. So we've got three yang lines, and in regard to trigrams, you could say this is the purest aspect of heaven, or the purest aspect of yang. One of the qualities of the straight line is it's unyielding.
Can I ask a question, please?
Please do, Mark.
I'm so sorry, but could you just tell me what you actually mean by heaven?
I just watched your hand go down with your phone.
I think,
Can I say something about heaven, or the way how I'm seeing also? For me, Qian in general is just energy, and when you put heaven, basically you have the direct connection to the source of creation. So this is the first master key, basically, the first bridge. And from there, we are extracting all the information which we need. Then, from this, passing this first master bridge, the information is put in the 3D level using the trigram Hun, or the mother, and from the mother is always distributed to the children, but always I'm seeing in the aspect of energy. And when somebody has an imbalance, now speaking the topic climate change, basically the imbalance is between fire and water. And although, let's say, we have too much water, and when it's too much water, if we're looking on the characteristic, then we'll see that water means danger, a lot of danger. This is
both too much for water and too much fire.
Yeah.
well, maybe we could say that the balance that has kept the homeostasis of planet Earth so constant for so long has shifted.
Well, this is what we mean by climate change, don't we?
Yeah. So the fire, water, in interrelated harmonious existence, you could say. Like in Chinese medicine, you have deficient fire, for example. So when the water aspect within an individual becomes deficient, then the fire starts to separate from water and float upwards, and can create a multitude of disorders, diseases, symptoms that affect the upper part of the body. And that's because the water root of the base has become weak and it can't contain the yang in its correct position. And if you look at that in regard to carbon, so then through our practices, you could say the carbon that is usually stored in trees, in roots, in leaves, in vegetation, and also in the ocean, that's been weakened so that the carbon's no longer stored in those areas and is now being released into the atmosphere, which again is increasing the temperature. So the heat's rising, you could say, in the heaven aspect, the upper part, and which is now contributing to the balance. Say, like the polar caps, you know, they predict that in probably the next 10 years, there'll be a completely ice-free summer. There'll be no ice in either of the poles, and the ice plays a reflective process of sunlight to keep the planet cool. So as all the pack ice in the two polar hemispheres normally reflects sunlight and helps keep the temperatures down. That's not happening anymore, so that the seas are increasing in temperature again, which is creating more evaporation and a lessening of the carbon within the oceans as well. So that's that the fire-water imbalance that we can see happening on the planet. And I guess I want to bring you back to heaven again. So we start at heaven, and to answer that, from my perspective, Mark, that heaven's again at a core level, I would say it's the primary impulse of unification or unity, and that precedes division. So it's a core element that underlies all existence, you could say.
Okay, that makes perfect sense to me. Thanks.
But the emperor was also classified as being heaven. You know, the old emperors of China, because they were the conduit, you could say, of heaven, and they kind of had the knowledge or the wisdom to actually bring through the principles of the yang energy, the pure yang energy. And one of those qualities that is unyielding, because it doesn't break. Like if you put pressure on a yin line, it collapses inwards or upwards, and there's movement through. But if you put pressure on these lines, they don't break. So there's an unyielding quality with the trigram of heaven, and it's also firm.
One of the things, though, we have to remember, though, is that in the evolution of mankind, or the world, sorry, the planet, is that we have a split. We have light and dark, hot and cold. We have this. It's a necessary part of our ability to transform and become conscious, our ability to adapt to the seasons and the regulatory forces that keep the planet in harmony. So emperors also thought nothing of sending their people to their deaths. They had no conscience about that. They were both good and bad. It's represented in the precious metals like platinum, for example, which is unbending, unyielding, highly haughty and demonstrative towards other people, and yet it's revered as if it was deity.
Yeah.
That is humans. That is the problem. That we're half in shadow, we're half in the dark, and we don't strive to look in there to see this.
Well, what would you say would be unyielding and firm within human psychology then?
The fact that we think we know better.
Agree, yeah. We have, let's say, this stubbornness in us that we think that we know better than the nature.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what the word stubbornness, would you put a trigram to that? Would you?
What's the trigram for compassion?
Ooh.
I will say that I will go to wind, because it has flexibility, a lot of flexibility.
You put compassion with wind, would you?
Yeah, I will put compassion with wind, because when you have flexibility, basically you always put yourself in the shoes of the other. You try to understand his perspective, his point of view. And when you are stubborn, basically you say, that's my way, and I'm not quite interested, and I'm not open for something additional. But when you are flexible, you're always searching for a solution for the best interest of both parties, or most of the cases, the other parties.
And the opposite to compassion would be narcissism, wouldn't it? Which would represent the stubbornness. My way, that's it.
Yeah.
Stubbornness I'd put with the mountain trigram.
Yeah,
So that's what that. So we know better then. So that's one quality of human psychology. Yeah. Malcolm already said striving, so we should put that in as well. And I'll put betterment with that as well, because I think that's a good concept.
Well, with that comes consciousness.
With what? Striving and betterment?
Striving, betterment, yeah.
What sort of consciousness?
Well, because you put yourself in relation to others to strive towards what it is that you need to achieve. It's a natural process that people need to integrate with others, and the capacity to do that determines the kind of quality of your striving and betterment. So people can strive for wealth, for example, affluence, and end up very unhappy and unwell because they failed to make relationships. Whereas somebody, the poorest people, can be the happiest because they have maintained an awareness of their relationships with other people. And the whole thing about consciousness is that you need another in order to do that. It's hard to do it on your own.
Yeah, it's a bit hard to answer that, you know, because I've obviously have never been on my own, except for, you know, shortish periods of time. But so I'm not actually sure if there was one human being in the world, for example, what that might be like. I find it a bit tricky to follow striving and betterment with, per se, attach that to consciousness. My perception of striving and betterment is that there's a core principle of not enough, or not a principle, maybe a belief I would attach to that. Hi, Armin.
Hi, Paul. Good morning.
Good morning.
So we're just unfolding. We're looking at again with climate change and the characteristics of the 4 trigrams, Qian, Kun, Li and Khan. So we're just in the middle of that process as we speak.
Okay.
And we're looking at the moment of the qualities of heaven. Excuse me a sec. Okay. I must have got the times wrong somewhere, guys. So yeah, so we're looking at heaven at the moment, and just some of the psychological characteristics. We just look at we know better, and a stubbornness connected to that, and a striving to be better than something is another characteristic. And what other characteristics might we attribute to a firm, unyielding quality? Or basically, what if we knew better? What would be the result then?
With is the ability to change. If you have a kind of rigidity or firmness, it's hard to accept or be flexible to change. Now, I understand, like in the material world, the minerals, the things that make up the mountain, also make up our basic structure, our skeleton. So the need for firmness is part of the balance of maintaining health. But within that, you need a flexibility, an ability to move and to warm up, cool down, all of this sort of stuff. So just like in the homeopathy world, the minerals, you know, that are taken up from the ground manifest as vegetation that is generally flexible and yielding to the elements, as are the animals that eat it.
Okay. So you're talking a diversity there. Would you say that?
Yeah, I would say so, or adaptability.
So when I just say the words then unyielding and firm, what does it bring up for you guys?
I think for me, it brings up lots of different things. Unyielding can be, it's a stubbiness, but it could be also interpreted as strong.
Yeah.
You know, thinking you've got wood or metal, you know, if it's thin, it'll yield or bend. But if it's shaped in a way, so you may have the same thickness, but if it's shaped in a way, in a structure that it doesn't bend, or it is thicker, so therefore it's stronger. So therefore you can have something which is strong. If that makes any sense to people?
Yeah.
Structure.
Yes.
And in regard to character as well, we could look at that, you know, those in a person's personality or character, there might be aspects that they would never yield on. A core value, a core ethic, and that unyielding or that firmness in nature is something that carries through all situations.
Discipline also. Because it's strong discipline.
Discipline. Would you put that with the quality of heaven, Harmon? Would you put discipline there?
Yeah, I can relate to that, definitely. However, a discipline needs a certain direction. You're not going to be disciplined just for no reason.
Yeah.
So, and that's a little bit the issue with Trigram Heaven, because it doesn't have any yin lines, and yin is about results and making things solid and concrete. And with heaven, to me, Trigram Heaven is mainly intention and choosing a direction. But if there isn't any yin, then you have nowhere to go with Trigram Heaven.
Yeah.
So it's about intention and maybe about concepts, ideas, that kind of thing, and also discipline. But with Trigram Heaven, you definitely need something else. So heaven on its own can't really realize anything, just as earth can't really realize anything, because earth needs a seed to work with. So to me, Trigram Heaven is mainly about choosing a goal, choosing this point on the horizon. But that's where I'm going. I'm not sure if I'm going to end there, but that's what Trigram Heaven is to me. Just you have to this idea of taking leadership and choosing the direction.
So are you okay if I ask you questions?
Yes, sure.
Yeah. So in that regard then, where we've got, say, heaven here, and then we've got wind. So obviously the yin components come into the wind, and I'm just bringing that up because I can't remember who brought that. Was that a video said that compassion is related to wind? But I'm just thinking as a quality then, when you replace the lower line of Qian with the yin line, how does that show up?
Well, if that means that you are seeing Trigram Heaven as a more or less a changing trigram, which is changing to trigram wind to insert that yin line that heaven needs, then, well, you know, it's the first line of the trigram heaven, which would be changing, and that would be the first steps. And combined with trigram heaven, that trigram wind, that would mean to me that you're going to take very small steps, and you're going to use planning and looking at details, and you're not immediately trying to achieve big things. You're going to look at the small things. Yeah. And just because you're just at the beginning, the first line of trigram heaven, you can't achieve big things. We have another trigram for big things, but with trigram wind, that to me signifies details, very small steps, but also working on the long term. So you're going to work on planning, that sort of thing. But also, as you already mentioned, gentle. You have to be very gentle and patient. And when you come up when you encounter an obstacle, well, fine, then you just take a step back and you try again. But with trigram wind, you never give up. You keep on trying. But it's mainly about very small progress.
Cool.
Like this story from that's one of these many stories from China. Like this man who was living in a village that was in the shadow of a mountain, never had any sun in that village. So this man decided to do something about it, and he started to break down the mountain. And all the other people said, "Yeah, but you're ridiculous. You're never going to succeed with that, because look how huge that mountain is." But he said, "Yes, but when I'm dead, then my children will carry on with my job, and their children will carry on. And that's how we will break down this mountain." So you have to be really patient with trigram wind. That story for me connects with trigram wind.
Yeah, okay. I'm just going to get rid of all this scribble. See that?
But I'm not sure how that relates to the story where you are now in your presentation. So.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Well, it's not a presentation. It's certainly a conversation rather than a. I didn't come very prepared except for a few slides. So. So what interests me with the pre and the post is the arrangement, and I know they describe different things, but I guess we can get information from anywhere. So some of the characteristics that I find, and again, if we can keep it in regard to looking at climate change, just to keep us connected to a core kind of thing, then it would make sense that even that moving to compassion as he described it, and I'm not sure if I would limit compassion to a single trigram, but if I did, I would probably put it to fire. But in this situation,
that would also be my choice.
Yeah. And so in this situation, and I know that the pre-heaven describes the movement of yang, or the decline of yang, you could say, or the expansion of yang as it reaches its extreme. But I'm interested the way that these trigrams of heaven and earth sit on the right side of the circle in relation to fire and water. And in particular, the transmission of the yang energy into Kun earth here, and the transmission of the yin energy into Qian heaven here. So if we're looking at an unyielding arrogance, you could say, in regard to human intelligence, that is blindly pushed forward, thinking that the world is an infinite resource to keep taking from, and nothing would ever change. And now we're slowly discovering that actually a lot of the practices that humanity have contributed on this earth have actually taken the homeostasis of the planet away in a lot of extremes. And your description then of how that gentle, small step persistence is placed in this position. And I'm wondering if there is a correlation with the post-heaven between the fire and the kun trigrams.
Paul, if you mean that we are currently in the Shenchen Bagua trigram circle at position of trigram heaven, and at the same time in the Hochen Bagua trigram circle at position of trigram fire.
Yeah.
Is that what you mean?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Well, then we are moving from this idea of fire in the Hochen Bagua trigram circle, which of course has all to do with fuel and where we get our fuel from. And now we have to go to trigram earth, which is more about receiving and working with what you have. We are actually moving from trigram, more or less, if you combine the circles, we are moving from trigram heaven. In a way, we're moving to trigram earth. And although I'm jumping from one circle to another,
Yeah.
but that I think that combines quite nicely with the trigram wind in the Shenchen Bagua trigram circle. Now we, instead of, trigram heaven is the trigram of leadership. That's the people who make the decisions. And now in the Hochen Bagua trigram circle, we are moved to trigram earth, which is the trigram of the people. So to me, that signifies that we are going to take more responsibility on our own and not going to depend on leaders who tell us what to do. And, it's a cliche, but, if you want to improve the world, start with yourself.
Yeah.
That idea.
Yeah. So just for others that
but trigram.
Yeah, sorry.
Trigram earth is also the trigram of nourishment and taking care of what you already have and taking care of what is given to you. So earth will always say, well, give me what you have and I will let it grow to its potential. That is what earth does. You put a seed in it, and earth will nourish it and make it grow. And earth doesn't really care about what kind of seed it is.
Yeah.
If it will be a small plant or if it will be a big tree, earth doesn't care about that. It will just feed it and try to make it grow. So I think that is what this actually the part is of the attitude that we need now. Instead of this idea of trigram heaven, which focuses mainly on leaders and having certain goals and directions and great ideas. And I think we need to be more focused on what we have. And of course, trigram earth is also our planet. I mean, if we're talking about earth, then I think we're talking about our planet. Whereas trigram heaven actually has more to do with space. So it gives me the impression that we should put less focus on Mars and and the moon, etc., but focus more on what we have here. It always surprises me that all these millions of dollars are being put into travel to space, etc. I think there's so much work to do here on our
minerals. They're just after mining and minerals. That's what they will do as well. There's no other reason to go to these places other than for profit.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. You're right, Mark. It's always, in the end, it's all about profit.
I'm going to be a bit of a killjoy too, because I don't think that we should worry about that. I think the planet will be fine.
Yeah. I agree, Mark.
It will do what it needs to do, because we have to accept the kind of boundaries of time and space between us as humanity and the planet as a planet. Time doesn't really matter to the planet, but it does to us. So we are the makers of our own destiny, and this is why we need to become conscious. It's not, it's very sad to see what goes on. And like I say, they're symptoms. If we paid attention to them, we would understand what cure would need, what a cure would be. But the planet will sort itself out. You know, it will kick us off at some point. It will do that anyway. You know, we're just accelerating something that is inevitable. My difficulty is that I'm a feeling person, that my relationship with the planet is very important to me and the people that are on it. And it causes disharmony and discord with me and others. And this is what, to me, needs healing. The kind of connection, just the spiritual connection with our world at all levels, at a fundamental level, where we have unification, that we bring together the opposites of light and the dark to something that is fragmenting. It's shattered. You know, we talk about the doom of the planet, but I think we'll press a switch long before that and do it ourselves if we don't wake up.
Yeah.
Unification, it is integration. Everybody.
Yeah, Mark, you said you talked about the planet, but you also mentioned our world. But our world is not the same as our planet.
Well, we have an inner and an outer world, don't we?
Yes.
So if we work on our inner world, the world of integration, then that will be reflected in our outer world. At the moment, we can't do that. We're just commodities. We live in a, what do you call it, a neoliberalistic culture where we're just traders, and that's to the detriment of the planet. So we want to be warm all year round. We don't adapt to change. We're not able to live with it. We're living in a different parallel to the planet is going on, and we're over here.
Is that what you would concur then, Harman? That's the difference between world and planet?
Well, planet to me is just, well, the sphere that we live on. Whereas world incorporates for me everything, the humans and all the planets, but also our own thoughts and intention, everything that comes with the concept of world. Whereas planet is mainly what I link with nature, etc. So world to me is more some sort of concept, and it's for me not the same as the planet.
Yeah.
But I think the world incorporates the planet. So, but come to think of it, I don't think I'm completely sure about my own definition of these two words.
We could take it a bit further and just sort of think about this planet in relation to the other ones that you're talking about, like our moon, for example.
Yeah.
The relationship with our moon is gravity. Without that, we're fucked. You know, it keeps everything straight and in place. And when you look at the other planets within our reach, within our consciousness, they all play an active part in our evolution. You know, water came from one of those planets. Which is the water planet? Is it Saturn? It's just water. It was transported by Jupiter and deposited here. Something made that happen. You know, there's a collaboration and a unification and a wholeness way beyond our planet. This intelligence comes from there. The water, the minerals, everything that we stand on came from there. And it's still doing it today. It's like our own defense mechanism. It's the planet's immune system. For example, the big one, what is it, Jupiter, is responsible for it has such a strong gravity, it draws all the space debris. Without it, we'd have been bombarded by asteroids and meteorites, etc., etc. The concept of gravity and the concept of contraction and expansion go together. Gravity shapes our world. It actually gives it its shape, its destiny, everything, holds it in place. It does both. Oops.
So if we come back to that contraction and expansion, then and I'll just bring this slide up. Hang on. So again, so if we look at so expansion, you can say on a yearly cycle begins again at midwinter solstice. and by expansion I mean the resurgence of the yang energy, or the growth energy, you could say. The stimulus to grow occurs at this pivot down the bottom here. So again, in the Fuxi we got Kun Earth, and in the King Winds we got calm water. So we got these two combinations here. So from this energetic of nourishment that Harman talked about, and the people and form, reception, responding, all of those sorts of things. Again, keeping in mind that this is placed in this region in the King Winds Gua. And we got heaven placed down here again, feeding water. Then we're looking at again with the carbon imbalance that's occurring, so too much carbon in the atmosphere instead of stored within the earth or in the seas, and this giving rise to the diminishment of human vitality as a means to exaggerated behaviours, you could say. And I'm not even quite sure what I was going to ask. So if it all starts with self-change, how do these 4 trigrams on a personal level, you could say, and the hexagrams that are created from them, and on this vertical axis, how do we utilize that within our own lives to expand and also to condense and contract?
Well, gravity does play quite a big part in that as well.
For sure.
So with the attraction of water, you get the expansion of water and the shrinkage through fire. We go through this year on. I watched this program once. It was amazing. They had this time-lapse photography of the moon, the full moon. I think it was the midwinter one, and the planet passing underneath it. And they did this one on the ocean. I think it was the English Channel. And they measured the rise of the water as it passed under this moon. I think it was about 7 meters it rose and then went back down again. And you could understand why this drives the tides, you know, backwards and forwards like this. But they did the same thing over some fields in Kent. Same thing. And the ground rose over 1 meter and fell back down again. And we would never know this. We would not feel it. We're just absolutely not aware of it. And yet you think of all the way, just for example, the moon affects people. We know of lunacy. We understand different times of the lunar cycle affect people in different ways. And that would be the opposite in midsummer, where the full moon is at its furthest away and we're at our driest and least receptive to water. And so we have this constant process of contraction and expansion going on all the time. That's just one example.
So if we put into the fire water component you talk about, like we know now through modern agricultural practices, you could say, that diversity is an essential component of soil health and the ability of the soil to actually absorb carbon into it. The more single crops, you could say, approach to agriculture has resulted in very infertile soils that only work with chemical fertilizers. So I guess if we look at Qian heaven as an initiatory quality, and especially as a core initiatory quality, like it's very common to say, oh, that's because we're human, but really we're human based on consecutive belief structures that have brought us to this state, you could say, state of attitude, and the rigidity of that pushing through without any regard to what consequences come up seems to be also coming into human consciousness, where there's a need for to all fit in, you could say, in our unique individuality, but to actually be along a more single product line rather than the diversity. And there's nothing happens by chance, you could say, and the planet Earth has had many extinctions, total extinctions of species over its history, and will occur again. I have to start to wonder what is there a purpose overall for human psychology or human consciousness that we're actually following with the planetary changes as well.
Do you not think that we're at the mercy of intelligence here, particularly institutionalized intelligence, like politics, for example, that we allow a system of governance that promotes a culture? One of the things this government will know is that psychologically, change in human behavior happens mostly during plagues, during what we're doing now, a pandemic. So if you look through history and you look at the advent of plagues, it ushers in changes in history. You know, the advent of the Renaissance period happened because of the plague. History shows this happens all the time. So this period we're going through now, the climate change, key word is change, the virus, the pandemic problem will bring about change to our behavior. It will change things, and our danger is how this governance utilizes this change for, well, I don't know, for better or worse. We have to make our own minds up here. But never ever have we had a need for unification and a need for qualities that bring about that unification. If we learn to love ourselves, then we can learn to love our world and then our planet. But that's it. Can't happen in another way. And it's a very, very serious time in history, our history. We're living through something that doesn't happen very often, and it's not going to go away. We have to get together. We have to do something. We have to unify. That's it. It's like we're doing here. We're kind of a global unification, aren't we?
Yeah, for sure. So unity is an interesting, if we look at these two trigrams down here, and I'd love for you to talk a little bit about this in a minute, Harman, because you were going to say about the origin of the Fuxi glass. I'd like to know more about that. But I've always worked with the Fuxi as an inner quality, more on the thought process, so more on the intention and the direction, motivation, you could say, of desire. And the outer one is the sensory influences that the outer world feeds back to us to help realign. So when you place water over Earth, over Kun Earth, we get the trigram which Alfred Wong calls union. So there is a union component here, and when you join these two together, it's a great harvest. So there's a highly successful combination, you could say, of joining these two trigrams together. And the other one that keeps coming up is diversity, which I think is Dry Lake on the bottom and Leaf Fire on the top. Because my understanding here is that from the quality of heaven as transformed into fire, is here we've got the amalgamation of heaven and earth already showing in existence, you could say. And the same with water, we've already got the combination. So there's an purity, you could say, with the heaven and the earth, and an external diversity that we have to see in our external world that brings us back to this core. And this is one of the reasons I feel that Qian Heaven's here, is because it gives this yang to the root of Yin. So it gives the yang energy of fire, you could say, into the middle of water. And water becomes the container in which life energy evaporates up and nourishes the sky. And water, as in rain, also becomes the life energy that comes back and nourishes earth. So water is a very significant component of that. And in the fact that in the human body, we could say the water is the blood in this situation. And the yang is the energy within the blood, the warmth. And I'm still puzzled about these four, again, on the vertical axis, and why when you put them in combination, they become the core of all the 64 hexagrams. And in alignment with the placement of fire and water on this central axis, which someone told me before is basically just sun and moon reflective qualities. And I'm not asking direct questions because I haven't really got a direct question. I'm just pondering out loud.
Yeah, well, with regard to these trigram circles, the way you are using them now, with seeing the Qian Bagua trigram circle as the inner circle and Qian Bagua trigram circle as the outer circle, that is mainly something that has been used quite a lot here in the West. And I can't really recall that it is something that they did in China. Not that that's really important, but I'm always looking at the history of things.
Yeah.
And the history of these circles, just out of curiosity and just to know how did they use trigrams in China. And this whole idea of seeing the Qian Bagua trigram circle as more related to psychology, etc., and more about ideas, I've never seen that in any Chinese literature. But that is not really surprising because, as I said on Facebook, that inner circle, the Qian Bagua trigram circle, is actually in the history of the I Ching relatively young.
Yeah.
And when I mean young, I mean somewhere around 1000 AD.
Yeah.
And we don't find the Qian Bagua trigram circle in sources before that time. Whereas the Qian Bagua trigram circle is found on the Tsinghua Shifa manuscript. It is mentioned in the Shogua chapter of the 10 Wings. That's a really old circle, which also has been used in other old literature about the I Ching. But the Qian Bagua trigram circle, it doesn't pop up before 1000 AD. And that's also what the Chinese sources tell us. They say, well, this trigram circle, the Qian Bagua trigram circle, comes from Qian Tuan. And he lived somewhere around 800 AD. He transmitted the Qian Bagua trigram circle. And Qian Tuan was a Taoist and especially interested in Naidan Taoism. And that is actually what the Qian Bagua trigram circle is showing. The principles from Naidan Taoism. And when you look at these alchemical texts like the Chantung Qi and also the Qian Du, they constantly refer to trigrams heaven and earth and water and fire. And the other 4 trigrams, well, they are just hanging in between, just as with Qian Bagua trigram circle. So this circle is mainly used to demonstrate certain Naidan alchemical principles. And what we do here in the West, what we often do, is that, and what what you're also doing, you are numbering the trigrams and you're giving them a sort of sequence from 1 to 8.
Yeah.
That is not something, well, I should be precise here. That's not something I've seen in the original literature of China with the Qian Bagua. Then they only see the trigrams as each other's opposites. It's more or less balanced state. There's no cycle in it. It's just, well, some sort of balance, equilibrium, status quo, whatever you want to call it. So, whereas the Qian Bagua trigram circle definitely has this cycle in it. It is connected with the seasons and the whole sequence of night and day. But that is not something that they did with the Qian Bagua trigram circle. Now, is that important for our usage? No, definitely not. I mean, you can use the Qian Bagua, and I know that from the balance method of acupuncture that the Qian Bagua is mainly used, I think.
Yeah.
And it works well. So, and that's what counts. But from a historical perspective, the Qian Bagua trigram circle actually plays a minor role in the history of the I Ching, simply because it's way too young to have any influence on the meanings of trigrams or how trigrams were used in ancient China. So, and that is actually what I meant with my small comment on Facebook. Most people don't realize that the Qian Bagua trigram circle is actually way younger, and the Qian trigram circle is way older. Because of these names, Qian has this idea of before heaven. Well, then that one must be the oldest circle, and Qian implies later heaven. Well, then that must be the oldest circle. It's also that the Qian Bagua trigram circle is linked with Fuxi. Well, we are not sure if he ever lived, but he lived before King Wen, who is associated with the Qian Bagua trigram circle. So all these legendary stories and names give you the impression that the Qian Bagua trigram circle is older. But that's not really the case. Well, again, that's not really important for the application of the circles, but for your perspective of these circles, it can be helpful to realize that.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
And there's an article from François Louis, The Genesis of an Icon. Do we have a file section on Facebook?
I don't know. I'll have a look. I reckon there must be.
Because then I can upload, because François Louis, he wrote an article mainly about the Tai Chi symbol, but he also addresses the history of trigram circles.
Yeah. Okay.
And so he is actually the person, this is the article that I would refer to explain why I say that the Qian Bagua trigram circle is younger, because that's explained in that article. So.
No, that's good. I can feel lots of resistance in myself about all that I've made up so far, because a lot of it it's not actually come from books. It's just kind of come from my own feeling. So it's good to get some.
But Paul, that's good. You should use that.
Well,
you don't have to follow any historical reasonings, sources, whatever. But mainly is important when you work with I Ching trigrams is, well, how are you going to apply it?
Yeah, that's right.
So
absolutely.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, who was that?
Yeah, Malcolm.
Malcolm.
Why was the new circle, and not old but new, actually, can I use the phrase invented or created when we already had an inner circle which seemed to be working? So why, if you want, reinvent the wheel?
Yeah, well, probably because the Qian Bagua trigram circle, and here on screen, that's the outer circle, does not really contain these balanced trigrams, like water against fire, mountain against lake, and heaven against earth. In the Qian Bagua trigram circle, you don't really have earth, and on the opposite you have heaven. But it is that kind of balance which in the Naidan inner alchemy of Taoism is quite important. So the Qian Bagua trigram circle doesn't show this balance. On the contrary, it shows this cycle where trigrams are flowing into each other. And so probably Qian Tuan or whoever came up with that circle needed a circle that showed this balance, this equilibrium, where things are more in a constant state and not changing. Because inner alchemy wants you to go back to the original source where everything is in balance, where there isn't any cycle. And that is actually where you need to go to. And I think that is the reason why they came up with an extra trigram circle. But these two trigram circles were not the only two trigram circles. There are more trigram circles. We also have the Tongchen Bagua trigram circle, the middle heaven trigram circle. And every circle had its specific purpose. And that also goes for the Shentian Bagua trigram circle.
Mm.
But you're not convinced, I see.
Well, I'm. If you want, I'm just getting into trigrams, and I'm still finding it all quite confusing.
Oh, what do you find confusing about trigrams?
Well, just just the whole lot where 1 minute you can have them balanced, and then we can then move it a little bit, and then they're imbalanced.
Yeah, amazing, isn't it?
And my first thoughts was I always thought that the theory behind it all was we're trying for balance all the time, and therefore you would put together trigrams to be balanced. So like in this diagram, I don't know if you can see what you can see, but I'm seeing the first slide, sort of 12 and 8, I assume it is at the bottom. They're balanced, they're reversed, but they're balanced.
Oh, I'm not sure if you're looking at the same slide, Malcolm. What are you exactly referring to?
I think he's talking 12 there. Yeah, is that right, Malcolm?
Yeah, 12. Yeah, 12.
Oh, that's 12. Oh, yeah,
That's-
okay.
Yeah, that's
And actually
12.
8 on the inside number, and 1. So 8 and 1 are balanced, because one's yin and one's yang. Yeah, I get that. And above that, above the 12, you've got yin, you got yang, and you got yin. And at the bottom, you've got yang, yin, yang. So therefore, that's balanced. But if you move over to the left-hand side, so number 4, so number 4 and number 5 are balanced, but the outer circle isn't balanced.
Oh.
Yeah.
No, nor should it be, Malcolm.
Let me give you another slide to look at. Hang on. Let me separate that. I'll separate that for you. So can you see the two here?
Yep.
Yep. So the top one, Harmon does it in nice Chinese. My Chinese pronunciation's worse than my drinking habit. So the top one's called pre-heaven, and the bottom one's called post-heaven. So they do have a different relationship for sure. And this one, from what I can understand, a lot of the 5 elements aspect or the stuff in Chinese medicine came again much later than the post-heaven Gua. And in the balance method, we use this for the attributions of the meridians to each trigram. So you familiar with that, Malcolm?
We've touched on it, and it's one of those things where I suppose in my practice I'm reaching out in all sorts of different directions, and this is one of the directions I'm reaching out and looking into.
Yeah.
just unfortunately time doesn't seem to be on my side. Still got lots of things to do, but the way I'm looking at these things is I did a little course on it, and we got told that you always have to try to balance each side. So if you look at the post and the pre-heaven ones, they're always, well, the bottom one isn't balanced, but the top one's always balanced. Therefore, that's what we're trying to, if you want, in medicine, is try to create balance.
Yeah, well, that's
and I think that's kind of struck a chord with me, because obviously that's what we're trying to do in medicine, is balance the yin and the yang all the time.
yeah. I mean, obviously balance is the right. You know, what you're looking for is, again, with that, the same with the carbon percentages. You could say, like, the carbon's not been removed from the planet. It's just the percentages of where it is shifted. So you could say that if we can restore balance between the carbon which is stored and then what's in the atmosphere, then again we can maintain that homeostasis. And that's what we're looking for in the body, obviously. But the balance is more that the rectification of that central pole, that unification of the Xiao Yin in the south and the north. You know, if both those poles are working, then the balance will develop on its own, basically. So if we can take the yang energy into the water and give the yang energy back up into fire, that's going to maintain homeostasis. So I wouldn't necessarily say you have to apply balance as in the trigrams on one side of the circle or the other, but you certainly need to balance the symptoms that show up on one side of the circle or the other. So if we just bring that slide back again. Right, let me do it. Oops. So if you look at if you've got someone that wakes up 4 o'clock in the morning, full of vitality, goes and exercises or whatever it is that constitutes a healthy lifestyle for that person, and then by the time that the afternoon comes in, they start to slow down, and then they nourish themselves, and then in the evening they settle down for a good night's rest. You can say that the symptoms are showing up in harmony with the circle. So they've got rising energy when the sun rises, and they've got slowing down energy when the sun sets. And we can look at that balance in accordance to all of the symptoms that a person shows in their pathologies.
Yeah.
So with the outer circle, what we use in balance method is we use the post-heaven gua to represent the seasons, or the elements, sorry. Whereas the Fushi gua on the inner circle is the meridians that we use to balance the seasons and the elements. We could spend a long time working on just that explanation, but if you've got a specific that you want to look at to it as an example for that, we can do that.
No, I'm just trying to, excuse me, grasp the whole, if you want, concept and where this kind of goes to, if that makes sense.
Well, just to use your analogy,
therefore I can look at it and then relate to it.
So you could just look at this as
Paul, could I interact?
Yes, Keith. G'day, mate.
How are you? Good morning. I've been listening attentively. I'm sorry I was late to the show.
Yeah.
So just something that I came across with balancing the later heaven arrangements. That on the pre-heaven, it's easy to see where the balance is, but on the post-heaven, it's a little more difficult. But if you draw it out into their magic square, If people are familiar with that one.
The magic
So,
square. Hang on, I'll just show
so
you.
then the 3x3 grid that represents each one of the trigrams. Here, I drew it out. Can you see that?
Is that what's on the screen at the moment? This one?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you look at that, but not in a singular rotation, but in a dual rotation. So if you can see from what I've drawn, you can see that there is a pattern the way they do line out. So if you start with 1 up to 2, 3, and 4, and then you take it on a second pattern but go backwards, 9, 8, 7, and 6. So there is a pattern done out in the magic square with that arrangement. It's just that you have to look at it from 2 directions rather than a single direction. Does that make any sense?
Not quite, not to me
No,
yet.
you've completely lost me, Keith.
I know another thing.
Maybe
So if I draw the square up, you can tell me where to put the arrows in, yeah?
Okay, so it's very simple. Just follow the numbers. If you
Okay.
draw the square out there, and yeah.
Oh. Now this will test me.
So the numbers are 492 on top. Okay, go ahead.
Yep. It's got 8 here, isn't it? Is that right?
Yeah.
So it must be 1
yeah.
there. There must be 3 there.
So if you join 1, 2, 3, 4.
Yep.
And then the next line then starts at 9, 8, 7, 6.
Right. And what does that give us then?
So that's the same pattern, just reversed. So instead of looking at a single rotation, we're looking at 2 rotations.
And for what purpose?
I don't know. That's as far as I got with it.
All right.
But it just showed that there is a balance in the sequence. It's just that it's not a single balance like we see in the pre-heaven.
Well, there is the pre-heaven and the post-heaven match actually. The sequence for that is 9, 4, 3, 8 and 2, 7, 6, 1. So there is another sequence that Alfred Wang in his numerology, the I Ching, talks about of how the pre and post-heaven guas actually connect numerically. So I'm not actually familiar with this pattern and why, because that's what lung.
That's just something I found myself. I didn't find it out of any texts, so I don't know if it's of any use or anything. But I just thought I'd throw it out there and see what people thought.
Yeah, well, if we look at the 5 as the center, as digestion or the stomach, you could say in some ways, then the meridian cycle runs through this pattern. So we get lung, large intestine, stomach, spleen, heart, small intestine, and then we drop down to urinary bladder, back up to urinary bladder, kidney, pericard, Sanjiao, gallbladder, liver. So the meridian cycle follows that sequence, Keith, if that's any help.
Oh, interesting.
Which I've got that again. Yeah, so the lung, well, the energy is supposed to start from the stomach as it comes into the lung channel, and then into large intestine, like I said, stomach, spleen, heart, small intestine, and then urinary bladder, kidney, PC, Sanjiao, where they've got gallbladder, liver there, which I guess would have to be accurate, but Sanjiao, gallbladder, liver, yeah, of course. Yeah, so that is the meridian sequence in the magic square.
Cool.
But
I will consider it further.
but I'd have to find out a bit more. But like I said, he's got this 9438 connection, which I guess is coming here, the 94 in the west, the 38 in the east, and that's your counterclockwise, I think, direction. And then we got the 2761. Yeah, so here we got the 2761 combination, also the south north. So that's also contained within there, and somehow the trigrams connect up numerically like that.
Interesting, yeah.
I've got notes of that somewhere, but I'm not sure where. And yes, there is a file section on the page, Harman.
Oh, good. Then I'll upload the file from François Louis for anyone who's interested in the history of trigram circles.
Thank you.
But just quickly then, Malcolm, on a simplistic basis, if we look at the trigram of Jun Thunder, we could say this is initial growth, or rapid growth even, or excited, excessive. And these are the pathological qualities, you could say, that these are all natural attributes of new growth, but if that new growth persists, it becomes pathological. Same with the firmness and unyielding nature of Qian heaven. If that consists without any adaptability or flexibility, you could say, to circumstances, then it becomes dogmatic, authoritarian, rigid. But if we just look at that as rapid, excited and excessive, then we could look at its counterpart, which is its opposite. So yang to yin, yin to yang, yin to yang. Then this is the other aspect. Both of these relate to wind, to wood. And this one's yang wood and this one's yin wood. And if we see this as the early morning energy, so the energetic that brings the ministerial fire, if that's the word you'd use for it, or the Xiao Yin kidney fire, the energetic that brings that up into the world is through the Jun Thunder trigram. And then the following on quality of that is Shun Wind, which slows the pace of growth down. How would you go? Excited? Well, you could put relaxed there, I guess, but relaxed and proportionate, maybe. So you can use the balancing aspects of the trigrams in the pre-heaven as ways of learning about what the trigrams mean in opposition. And of course, opposition also means complementary. They're kind of part of one unit. You know, like a plant, when it initially pops through the earth, you could say it's the energetic of Jun Thunder moving through, and then the energetic of Shun Wind keeping that growth occurring.
The two-way thing is obvious. I mean, it can't be any other way. Even though, you know, when you look at your diagrams, the circles, you see that there's a one direction movement in the circle. And for example, you can see that the sun rises in the east and sets in the west, and that's not going to change. But on the dark side, that's the unconscious side. It is going from the west to the east. You just don't see it. And so there has to be a two-way communication. And as we evolve, we have to see the dark side, if that makes sense, and learn what's on that in order to become balanced. And we don't, we focus on the light constantly. So it has to be a two-way process. It's the same with the carbon cycles. You know, it is going backwards and forwards. It's done in a circular motion, that's all. To me, it's alchemy. It's because of alchemy, because although we're all similar, we're all very different. And kind of mix, our own individual mix determines the quality of our energy, and it will be different for everybody. There can't be a one way to deal with somebody's problem. It has to be a unique way.
Well, I was talking to Jules about that last night, and she said the same thing, Mark, and I actually said, well, I don't know if I agree with that. I think there is a simple method to apply to every life form, or certainly human being.
That's why you're not talking now then.
Hey? What was that? Is that why we're not talking? Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, too much yang. And it was in the evening time as well, so didn't. Yeah.
I did a lot of research last night too. I have to go, I'm afraid.
Yeah, me too. Pretty soon. All right. So just before you go, just I only put this stuff up about climate change so we had something to talk about. So we can either just go completely fresh with it and whatever comes up, or we can think of subjects that we'd like to explore, put them down in the Facebook group, and then we can look at them over the month and come up with what we're going to look at next time. Because it's a broad subject. Yeah.
It's a vast subject.
Well, it covers the entire planet.
Yeah. Yeah.
Helps us strive towards consciousness. This is what we need to do.
All right. Well, fellas, good to see you all.
Have a great month. Nice to meet you guys.
Are you in the UK as well, Malcolm?
Yes, York, basically.
Yeah, okay. So well done for all getting up early in the morning then.
Did you have a good birthday, Pete?
And see you all in a month.
Yep. Okay.
Thanks very much, guys.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Paul,
Yeah.
can you send me the Facebook link, please? I don't think I've got it.
Absolutely. And it's have I got? Let me just. I'll put it in the chat. Yeah, can I put it in the chat now? Let's have a look.
Yeah.
It might be the quickest way.
Just bringing up the chat now.
Yeah. Oh, sorry, I went to the files section there, so just knock the files off at the end. Well, you'll probably get to the group anyway, but it'll ask you to answer a couple of questions. And if you do that now, then you'll probably get automatically accepted actually. So, but if you have any trouble, just drop me a line.
Right. Okay then. So talking trigrams. Don't put the files in, and that's the groups. Okay, I'll jump on Facebook group now.
Yep.
And
we're friends on Facebook, aren't we?
I don't know. You sent me an email, so.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Well, if I can.
Sorry, I'm in the clinic at home.
Oh, yeah.
I keep getting disturbed. People keep coming in, little ones.
Yeah, they do that.
So, yeah. But no, trigrams is something that, like you say, I've touched on, and it become very confusing for me with all the different ones. And I thought the whole idea was try to match them up so that I was balanced.
Yeah.
So I think more reading's probably needed.
Yeah, well, and also questions. You know, put your questions on the Facebook group.
Yep.
You know, and we start working, because I think there's 100 odd people signed up to the group, so it'd be good to get some dialogue going. And there's bound to be a lot of people on there with different points of view and different ways of looking at stuff, which is always useful. So yeah, if you've got specific questions, put them up on the group, and especially if that's something, you know, if I find it and I think, well, yeah, that's something we could spend a couple of hours on in a month's time, then
Yeah.
no problem. We just go through it like that.
Cool.
Yeah. Awesome.
Awesome.
And just to mention Harman, if you look up Harman, he's got a YouTube, I think it's called, just YI Tube, and he's got some excellent videos on there. So they're definitely worth listening to.
And that's on YouTube.
No, it's called, yeah, it's on YouTube, but he calls it YouTube.
Right.
And I think
YI Tube.
I think it's the Eugene Research Centre, he calls it.
Whereabouts are you then, Mark?
Paul's my name, but I live
Paul,
in
sorry.
I live in Tasmania.
All right.
Yeah, Australia. So it's and I think if I go, I'll just give you another one.
So it's total global.
Yeah, it'd be nice to get some Aussies in on it. Some pretty good balanced method practitioners over here, so they must be too busy. But there's that link I put underneath. I'm not sure if it'll take you, because that's on my channel, but there's quite a lot of little videos I've got up there about trigrams as well, a bit more focused on acupuncture. But yeah, you're welcome to watch those as well. And it's just called Oneness Acupuncture Therapy, Integral Freedom, YouTube.
I'll just write these down.
Yeah, well, I'll send out the information on the chat as well, of what's on the chat, and maybe I'll send that out in the email, the recording.
Subscribe. Right, I've just subscribed to your Oneness Acupuncture Freedom Intelligent.
Yeah, cool.
Integrated Freedom.
Yeah. Did you manage to find Harman's one?
Is that talking Trigrams?
Let me just have a look.
Just trying to do it now.
See if I can find it too. Yeah,
I've got talking Trigrams public group join. My request is pending on that one.
Yeah, I'll just find that up then. Yep, done. And I've just found Harman's first video called The Foundation. So I'll send you the link to that as well. Yeah, so that bottom one there is to Harman's YouTube channel. And he's quite the scholar, so it's very lucky to have him in the group.
Right. I've just posted thanks for the diagram, talking diagrams.
Yeah.
Close. Not close. Yeah, my phone's playing up a little bit. So.
Yeah, no worries. But like I said, when I save send the recording off in the email, then you'll get the chat. I'll send the chat info as well, so it should be there in the chat if you have any trouble. Or otherwise, just put it up on the Talk About Diagrams group. I'm looking for this, I can't find it. I'm sure someone will help you. Awesome. All right.
Yeah, that's fine.
I'm going to nick off.
Okay.
So have a good
one. And me, I'm getting bombarded here by little people.
Yeah.
So.
All right, mate. Good to see you.
Okay. See you there. Take care.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye.